Hey everybody, welcome to your horoscopes for the week. These are the horoscopes for the week ending February 25th. So this is the last full week of February and it's March already next week. Um kind of crazy. Things are kind of calm right now. Actually, we are retrograde free right now. We're in a current state of all planets moving direct, and that is an energy that as a whole we really need right now. Honestly, I feel like the past few years we've kind of tried to move back into a semi quote unquote normal space. Things are just sort of breaking down. There's a lot of delays. Everything still seems to be delayed by COVID. It's kind of ridiculous. So having this direct movement with the planets actually is really going to help all of us with that. When you think about it, a lot of things that it just feels like there's something in the way and things aren't moving forward, having this direct emotion energy all across the board kind of helps things just start moving along a little bit. And we all need a little bit of that for sure. Outside of that, there really isn't a lot of major challenges or aspects going on this week either. I mean, there is a little bit, but it's not what we've been dealing with. So that's kind of nice too. So I think overall, in general, this is a really good week for us to pat ourselves on the back because we're still here. To really make the most of what we have accomplished and lay down our plans, solid plans to move forward with the next series of things that we want to accomplish. And there's definitely a really good energy for that for everybody this week. But we're going to go ahead and let's just get to our horoscopes, and we're going to start with Aries. We continue to have Jupiter in Aries in a grand sextile with Mercury and Mars. This is actually a very helpful aspect. Um, Focus is on your support system this week, and with Mars focus on bringing up some old anger issues, unfortunately, because it is very much focused in that secret closet place. And Mercury's focus is on your long-term goals. I feel like this actually plays out in a couple of different ways. One, Jupiter's all about expansion. So it's all about growing that support system. And I feel like Mars placement in this really is about releasing some old mindsets over past support that maybe didn't work out as it should have, if that makes sense. I know that a lot of us who grow up with trauma and maybe grow up with unsupportive parents or parents that aren't quite there, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have a tendency to sort of internalize that as an adult into, no, I don't deserve support. So nobody's here to support me. And even if you've got the support right there in front of your face, you don't necessarily recognize it as support because you don't know what that looks like. So Mars influence in this really is about releasing those old mindsets in order to provide room and space for you to be able to see the support system that you have in front of you, as well as create new contacts to support your long-term goals currently at this time also. So it actually really is very cool when you think about it. Mercury's involvement, of course, is all about communication, getting things done. We're well out of that Mercury retrograde space now, so it's not something that we're worried about at this particular point. Actually, it's all about moving forward in your goals. So it's actually really, really quite good. The other thing that I feel is really coming up for you guys this week also is fine tuning those plans. And I feel like we're not just looking for random support here. We're looking for specific support. So I always look at it as, or I've always heard, I should say, that success, if you want to be successful, hang out with successful people because they're the ones that are going to teach you what they did to become successful in whatever your goals are. This is actually taking that next step up and broadening your support system to those very specific people that are going to help with your specific goals. So we're looking at support within the spectrum of what your goals are, be they career goals, financial goals, etc., etc. And in many cases, I think a lot of the things or one of the big things actually that gets in the way of our progress is in terms of success as human beings is when you get higher up in your goals, your support system has to become more and more fine-tuned. Otherwise, you have a bunch of support that doesn't really know how to be supportive, I guess, if that makes sense. It's kind of weird there. So in terms of that, it is actually very important for you to make sure that you're not just grabbing whatever is there. You want quality support. Quantity is really not the most important thing, but quantity is. We also have Venus moving into Aries this week as well. So that brings this sort of creative influence into your support system. So we're broadening out and we're opening up the scope to really pay attention to. And in some cases, just opening ourselves up to be able to receive the support we need is a really powerful thing. If you're walking around going, okay, I'm looking for support, but I don't think I'm going to get it, the chances of the universe providing that for you or helping you to find it are very, very small, because you're literally telling the universe, I don't need the help and I don't really want to find it. So keep that in mind this week as well. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're going to move on to Taurus. We do continue to have a square with Uranus is square with Mercury this week, and it will go on all week. Good news is it's done next week, and then we don't have to deal with that anymore at all. Well, we do when the moon is present in there, which unfortunately it is we move into the end of the week, and the moon moves into your sign and moves into conjunction with Uranus, which is going to make this square a little bit nastier and of course a little bit more emotional because the moon is involved. We are looking at Uranus's focus is very much right in the middle of that trauma closet and your support system. It's like we're moving out of that trauma closet support into your support system. What kind of support do you have around these particular traumas? And since there's so many of them for most of us, it can be really hard to pinpoint the roots of these things. But the more you work on it, the more you get through it. Trust me on that. Mercury's focus is on your long-term goals. And so there's a couple of interesting things actually that come out of this. First of all, Uranus's energy is very erratic, if that makes sense. It's very out of the box. It's about blowing it up and creating chaos so that we can come up with a better way of doing things. And taking risks is also a big factor when we're talking about Uranus, which isn't an easy thing for a fixed sign as a rule. Okay, I think Tauruses can handle it a little bit easier than most of the other signs, but again, you guys are earth signs. Earth signs are really not about taking risks as a whole. Okay, so that does create a little bit of a challenge, but I feel like what's really taking place here is that you're in this spot and you're in this energy. You've got these old mindsets that you're working towards to kind of eliminate them so they're not holding you back anymore. You've done all the work, and then you get to this point where you're like, okay, I'm here, but nobody else is here. I'm just supposed to do all this by myself. And most of the time, yeah, it really does come down to us individually. It's not our support system. We spend so much time hearing people go, I never would have got through this without all my friends and all my work colleagues and all my family. And when you're hearing those things and not necessarily receiving it yourself, it really does turn into, well, I don't have that, so I can't do that. And the truth is that even though those people had all those people to help them, it doesn't mean that they couldn't have succeeded without those people either. And we're not exactly being told what kind of support they got from these people either. So you have to take all of these things into consideration. Bottom line is that this sort of epiphany becomes very emotional, especially as we get towards the end of the week, when the moon sort of takes a place in this nightmare, so to speak. Not exactly fun, but this actually is a really important lesson, because the truth of the matter is that there's only one thing between you and success, and that one thing is whether or not you get things done. And that is always what it comes down to. Doesn't matter how much support you have. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It does. None of those things matter. What matters is what you're willing to put into your goals. I know that all of these planets moving into Aquarius and moving square with Uranus has been a nightmare, and it really has created a lot of roadblocks in your success. It's created a lot of roadblocks in your plans. That is going to free up a little bit. Things are going to start to feel like they're moving forward. This is just, you heard the term, it always gets worse before it gets better. That's what this week is. It's going to get worse before it gets better. So just hang in there and try to look at this as the universe daring you to see what you're made of, regardless of who's standing there doing it with you. That's really what it comes down to. I think we all use that excuse a lot, and this is a really good opportunity for you to see what you really can do without that support. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Gemini. Gemini's focus continues to be on self. Mars, which is still in Gemini, brings that focus of that secret closet or our trauma closet into the picture as well. Not exactly the most fun thing to do, but we all got to take a bite out of that apple at least once a year, according to the horoscopes anyways, at least once a year. Mars also moves into a square with, I thought it was, okay, moves into a square with the moon, and then of course the sun later on in the week as the sun moves into Pisces. So we are dealing with that as well. The sun's focus is on career. When we're dealing with issues around our career, we make things so very, very complicated, and we're going to simplify it just a little bit for you guys right now. First of all, your Geminis. What's the one thing that Geminis always do? They overthink everything. So if you're having to make a decision about staying where you are or moving to another career type of career, or you really want to do this one but you think it's better, more financially stable to go this other route, what tends to happen is you spend a lot of time thinking about what you should do. And because you're spending all that time thinking, your mind is changing. You're changing your mind on what you need to do. So one minute you're like, yeah, I got to get out of this job. It's nowhere dead end. I'm moving on to this job. And then 45 minutes later, you're like, well, what if I don't go to this one and don't stay at this one, but make a complete 180 turn and go in this direction, kind of a thing. You're over complicating it for yourself. It really can be simpler than that. I like to look at it as taking it out of here and putting it into something physical, like writing it down like a list. You have 3 options. You write down all 3 options. You have your pros and your cons for each one. And it gives you a visualization that shows you a little bit more information that can help you make an educated decision, if that makes sense. And also, you want to take into consideration, especially because Mars has a lot to do with this, you definitely want to take into consideration that the longer this decision takes, the more frustrating it really is going to be. So keep that in mind, because obviously you don't want to deal with frustration for a really long time. Nobody does. The good news is that all week long, Mars is in a grand sextile with Jupiter as well as Mercury. Now, Jupiter is focused on your support system, and Mercury is focused on your long-term goals. And this is actually kind of interesting for you guys as well, because obviously, if you're having a bit of a challenge making decisions based on your career, this could have to do with your long-term goals. And your long-term goals really play into that decision. In fact, whatever your goals are, if they don't align with your career, it may not work for you. So make sure that you take those into consideration. And if you haven't made any long-term goals, maybe it's time to start. I really feel that a lot of us, and I think Geminis do this more often than anybody else, really, but a lot of us don't make plans. We just simply go, okay, I have to get a job. I need money. And so we go and we do that, and we wind up bouncing around, and we wind up making a little bit of money for a while. And then 20 years goes by in the blink of an eye. Okay. And all of a sudden, you're like, wait a minute, I kind of wanted to do something 15 years ago and completely forgot. And then you go through the whole process of, well, I'm too old now, blah, 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 blah. You're never too old, by the way. You are absolutely never too old. If that was the goal that you forgot about, make it a goal now, and see what you can accomplish. Bottom line here is that as long as we're continually moving forward and learning something and developing ourselves in some way, we're never too old to do any of that. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Cancer, focus is on the past this week, although Pallas Athene brings in an element of focus on self this week. And actually, it's kind of an interesting thing when you think about it. Your past and a lot of events in your past tend to make you the person that you are today. And Pallas Athene, being that warrior goddess there, she's kind of a fighter. But she's not a scrapper who fights to fight. She's a fighter because she fights for what she believes in. Her focus on self is what's interesting here. I think that in many cases we have it completely and totally wrong. Our focus is that we should fight for other people, and I agree with that. There are plenty of instances where sometimes we do have to step in and fight on the behalf of another person. And I do agree with that, but we oftentimes don't really think about fighting for ourselves. We do think that somebody else should fight for us because we're out there fighting battles for other people all the time. Sets you up for failure every single time. Some people just aren't those types of people. If you don't tell them that you expect them to fight for you, they don't know, and so therefore it causes a miscommunication between the two of you. People have their own lives and their own things that they have to fight for. We can't exactly expect them to come fight our battles for us as well. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. The bottom line is that well, a lot of times you can look back on your past and see all the mistakes that you made and use those to completely berate yourself the entire time. We also can look to the past to see where we've grown, how we've developed, how we've leveled up in some way. And by looking at that, it gives us a stronger view of who we really are. And that is really what your guys' focus is this week. I feel like this is something that we should all be doing at least once a month, is checking in to make sure that we're in line with who we want to be and where we want to be and how we want to be doing it. If we're not doing that check-in, we're really not getting anywhere. It's just kind of like running in place. It's good exercise, but you're not going to get anywhere. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're moving on to Leo. We have the Lilith or dark moon in Leo influencing the mind and how you use it this week. This is actually kind of interesting also. I think a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of clients over the years, and I am an overactive brain person myself. I am an overthinker. I have been to Overthinkers Anonymous. I've started the group Overthinkers Anonymous. It's really exhausting, and how you think about things really does make or break what happens in terms of your success. So for instance, if I look at a full day of clients and go, oh, I'm going to be so busy and I'm going to be so tired and I just don't know if I can handle this particular client or what have you, then that's the energy that I'm going to put into the whole day. And mind you, that's not really an energy that I want to put into my clients either, to be honest with you. If I look at a day full of clients as a blessing because I have a day full of clients and I'm making money, it puts a completely different spin on what I'm doing. So knowing this and knowing that my natural way of doing things is to go negative and not positive, I spend a lot of time working on making sure that I am looking at what I need to do in the most positive way possible. And it gets even more interesting, really, because when you notice the amount of times you do that, even for the littlest things, it becomes absolutely unreal. When you think about it, it becomes absolutely unreal. Just think about, you may not be one of these people, but that's okay. Think about needing to take a shower and just not wanting to get up. It's cold, but you're under a blanket and it's nice and warm, but you got to take a shower, and you just, oh God, I just got to get up and then get in the water, and then it's gonna, I mean, the more you do that, the more likely you're not going to get up and take a shower, when really just getting up and taking a shower takes 10-15 minutes and you feel so much better afterwards. There's no reason for you to waste all that energy, that being negative, towards something that's going to be better for you anyways. And it can be done lickety split without all of that other stuff, basically. So it takes up time. That's all it does. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Virgo, focus is on the home this week with nothing to influence that, which is not a bad thing. But I do feel that this week, in terms of focus on the home, there's a couple of things that come up with that. First of all, you Virgos are very social people. So being at home probably gets kind of boring after a while, if that makes sense. And that's what I'm feeling happening for you guys this week, is this sort of restless, I gotta get away from these four walls before I go crazy kind of a feeling. But that restlessness also has a lot to do with either not knowing what to do or having so many options it's really hard to choose which direction you want to take, if that makes sense. Don't overcomplicate it. Number one, Virgos are thinkers, overthinkers to a certain extent. You don't want to overcomplicate it and overthink it. Sometimes it's just fun to close your eyes, look at a map, point, and then go to wherever your finger lands on the map. Just to kind of sort of get a little adventure and maybe find something new that you didn't know existed. So that's one thing. The other thing I feel that some of that restlessness may be coming from, in terms of focusing on the home, has a lot to do with certain projects that you may be waiting on or wanting to do, but unfortunately need to wait on. So this Virgos, once they get on a roll to get things done, they want to get it done. In fact, I have a Virgo boy at home right now who's in the mode of, hey, let's get rid of this stuff and let's clean this stuff up, and he's gotten so far without me, and then the rest of it, unfortunately, he needs me, he needs my assistance, and I just don't have time, and I know it's driving him absolutely crazy. This is the kind of energy that I'm feeling coming from this right now, is this sort of frustration because you're waiting on somebody else. And sometimes we're just stuck dealing with that. So if you can refocus your energy on something else, something that you can get done, even if it's not what you want to do, it's something that's getting done. Well, and helping you to not get so frustrated having to wait for somebody else when you're having to deal with that. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Libra, focuses on those you love this week, although Ceres is right on the cusp of focus on the home as well. So it brings both of those two things into focus very strongly this week. Ceres is also retrograde at this time. We've talked a lot about Ceres over the last few weeks because she's been there for a while. Very nurturing and motherly influence. In retrograde, though, I feel like we're taking that away a little bit, or maybe looking for that nurturing influence for yourself. In all honesty, when we talk about nurturing, we think of women, because women are normally known as the ones that are nurturers. That doesn't mean that men aren't nurturers as well. And if you are a nurturer, it really becomes difficult when you sort of get to that point where you feel like you need nurturing at some point. And when you're not receiving that from other people, because, you know, let's face it, you're giving it out and they're not really giving it back, it really feels crappy, in all honesty. I mean, I can't even say it any other way. It really feels crappy when you put so much effort into other people and just don't feel like you're getting that effort back. So this week I feel like it's pointing towards the people closest to you, really. And I feel like this week may be one of those instances where it's time to communicate about the problem, not to internalize it, not to hold it back, not to sit there and hope that eventually somebody will see that you're hurting and do something about it. Doesn't always work out. This is about communication and not demanding, because trust me, you're not going to get anywhere if you do that. This isn't about demanding. This is about communicating. This is about having a discussion about how you feel, but you also have to be open to other people's feelings as well. That's also a big mistake that a lot of people make, is I want to sit down and talk to you about me. And when they start talking about themselves, which, yes, could be rude, but this may be a two-way street and you're not realizing it either. So if you're going to have a discussion, make sure you understand that it is going to be a two-sided discussion. Any other kind of discussion isn't going to work out. You can't, obviously you don't want to sit there and demand that somebody does something either and not expect to do anything in return, even if you do a lot already. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Scorpio, focuses on your day-to-day schedule this week, and there is nothing to influence that whatsoever, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I feel like you guys are going to be dealing with some kind of a heavy schedule, actually. I see a very heavy schedule this week. Mainly because I kind of am feeling like there's a couple of things in that schedule that aren't normally there. So your normal schedule is what it is. You add a couple of doctor appointments and a trip out of town for something important at the last minute, and bam, it becomes a very, very heavy week. And it doesn't take much in some cases. There's a couple of things that I feel are really coming out of this for you guys. One, it's not easy for fixed signs to be flexible. Trust me on this. I'm a fixed sign myself, and I have had to remind myself to be flexible every day for years, because it's hard. Once you got things set, it's really hard to move things around. It takes up time. It's frustrating. You rather be doing something else, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So flexibility is important. Remind yourself that you need to be flexible and that it's okay to be flexible. Two, self-care also is really important, especially if you're going in like two different directions almost at the same time, or you're going all the way over here and then you got to turn around and go all the way over here before you can come back in the middle where you're going to end up, kind of a thing. That can be a little bit overwhelming and frustrating as well. But I also feel that self-care is important on those days that you do have off. So if you're one of those people as a normal work schedule that does all their house chores on the weekend, and all of a sudden you've got, a couple of really big things that have kind of just been throwing a wrench in your schedule all of a sudden, skip the housework. It's not going to crumble to dust because you skipped it one day, or maybe don't go quite so crazy into it, if you know what I mean. Do some light stuff, do what you need to get done. um there are times when my schedule is so crazy that I'm lucky if I can get laundry done in a week. And I used to really, really, really feel guilty about that. I don't feel so guilty about it anymore, honestly. It's not to say that it's not my only job, but there are things that can be taken care of by other people that don't necessarily have to be taken care of by you. And if it is something that has to be taken care of by you, if it doesn't have to be done right now, it doesn't have to happen right now. So make sure you have a day in there to rest and recuperate so that you can be ready for whatever comes next week. So that's what I have for you guys. Moving on to Sagittarius, we continue to be focused on relationships this week, probably one more week of that, and then we're moving on into a different focus. No planets influencing Sagittarius this week, which is not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. Just is what it is. I feel for you guys that this week really, I want to say it really, really centers around your relationship with you, if that makes sense. Now, it's really scary for a lot of people to really look at who they are. In fact, it's scary for everybody to really look at who they are, especially if you're looking at who you are honestly. Now, we're all good at lying to ourselves. We're all good at justifying. That's my Sagittarian word, by the way, is justifying. We're all really good at justifying. But really taking an honest look at yourself, your good points, your not so good points. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you not taking care of yourself? By doing this, you really get a clear picture of who you are and what you need to do. And it helps you to build a healthier relationship with yourself. Now, when you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself, and this includes an emotional relationship, you have a tendency to have bad habits. You have a tendency to maybe not eat as well, to not exercise as much. Or in some cases, it's the opposite. If you don't have a great relationship with yourself, you tend to over exercise, you tend to over diet, you tend to over take care of yourself, but it's still coming from the same place. You want to be balanced in everything that you do, and that's not an easy thing. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and act like it is an easy thing, because it really isn't. Being balanced in everything that you do takes a lot of work and a lot of remembering to balance things out. And of course, we can't have balance in our lives every single second of every single day, but we're trying to get as balanced as we possibly can, to make sure that things run smoothly and to keep us healthy at the same time, emotionally, mentally, and physically. So this week is a really good opportunity for you to take stock of that and really look at yourself honestly, look at where you are honestly, your health honestly, all of those things, take all of those things into consideration. And don't beat yourself up if you're making mistakes. Fix them. That's what we're here for. This is what we need to do. And if nothing needs to be fixed, great. And if things do need to be fixed, it's time to make a plan, ladies and gentlemen, to make sure that you get those fixes taken care of. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Capricorn, we continue to be focused on finances this week, and Pluto continues to influence that just a little bit. His sextile with Neptune is very helpful. Actually, Neptune's focus is on career. Of course, we're talking about growth and expansion in terms of your finances, and of course, your career is a good place to start with that, right? But this is Neptune's focus on your career, and Neptune really has a lot to do with your intuition. And so I feel like really this has a lot to do with using your intuition to help guide you in the direction that you need to go, specifically in terms of your financial goals. Now, for instance, this can be difficult actually for Capricorns. Capricorns tend to think in a very black and white scale. You either go to this place because it makes the money, or you go to this place because it makes the money, but you definitely don't go to this place because they don't make enough money, right? Easy peasy, very black and white. But that's not allowing your intuition to help guide you in what you need to do. What if your intuition is telling you this place you won't make as much money right away, but you can make more money in the long run, and it's pulling you in that direction? If your intuition is pulling you in a specific direction, you might want to take a look at the opportunity as a whole, if that makes sense, because your intuition knows what you don't know. And if we're talking about how much money I make right now versus how much money I'm going to make a year from now, you could actually wind up at the wrong company, because the company that is offering more money right now is going to be offering the same amount of money a year from now, whereas you'll be making more money with this other company. So allow your intuition to come in and help you make that decision just a little bit, because honestly, when you do, you may not see the results right away, but you do see the results in the long run. And even though it may not make sense in the moment, your intuition is never wrong, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Aquarius, focus continues to be on long-term goals. We continue to have Mercury in Aquarius. We will have the moon in Aquarius as well right at the beginning of the week. Mercury continues to be squared with Uranus this week, and will be squared with Uranus for the rest of the week. And of course, we are officially saying goodbye to the sun this week, as well as we kick off the week with the sun moving on into Pisces, and Aquarius season is officially over, and that's okay. It'll be back. It'll be back next year. Mercury square with Uranus focuses on long-term goals. Uranus is still focused on that secret closet, our trauma closet. This is, of course, Aquarius's ruling planet also, which makes this a little bit difficult. Bottom line is that I'm an Aquarius myself, and I do this all the time. We Aquarians are really good at talking about what we do. Not exactly all that great at following through and actually getting it done. So I really feel that this square is coming up to help show us that, in probably an annoying way, but that's okay, to help show us that so that we can improve on that. And it's not to say don't talk about what you're doing, but it really is all about, okay, practice what you preach, Aquarius. Come up with the plan and actually get it done. And it's not that Aquarians are lazy. I suppose some people could say that. I suppose I could say that about myself every now and then too. I am lazy. I just tend to schedule my lazy time so that I get it, and then I'm productive the rest of the time. But it's not so much that Aquarians are lazy. The issue is that we are intellect driven, not get things done driven. The absolute perfect combination is an air-earth combination. I've got an idea, says air. Okay, I will build it, says earth. And that would be perfect if we all had an earth person to get all of our stuff done, which we don't. So the bottom line is that we have to do better about following through with what we say we are going to do, or following through with, I have an idea, following through with making that idea actually happen and actually take place. So yeah, talk about it, but make sure you get something done with it also. And yes, I'm talking to myself because I have the same problem. I don't think I've ever met an Aquarius that doesn't have that problem. So that's one thing. The other thing is Pluto is so close to being in Aquarius. It's not even funny, and will be very, very, very soon, but is on the cusp. So we're already feeling that influence of Pluto, which is not necessarily a bad thing, really. Pluto's influence is on finances in a sextile with Neptune, whose focus is on career. We're talking about long-term goals here, long-term financial goals, long-term career goals. They all kind of go hand in hand here. And while Aquarians generally are not planners and goal people, they're more like a sort of a hippie, gypsy, fly by the seat of my pants kind of energy, which is not really conducive to success when it comes to goals and things like that. Yes, it's hard to get yourself to sit down and focus on one thing at a time, but through meditation, and through coming up with different things to help you to focus, it is possible. It's not that we can't, we just have to put a little bit more work into it. That's all. Once we do that, we can go ahead and give yourself, a day to fly by the seat of your pants and be a gypsy or what have you. That's fine. Just make sure the rest of the time is focused on what you need to do to get to where you want to be. That's what it comes down to. And you got to do the work. We all got to do the work if we actually want to achieve success. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And finally, we are moving on to Pisces. The sun moves into Pisces this week. The moon moves into Pisces at the beginning of the week on Monday. We've also got Neptune, who continues to be in Pisces. And we're watching Venus leave Pisces right at the end of the week, too. So a lot is going on in Pisces this week. It's, of course, the start of Pisces season. So, of course, there's a lot going on in Pisces. It's Pisces time, right? I can see all you little fishies all dancing and all excited, and it's just so awesome. And it will continue to be awesome. We do have a square with the sun and Mars as the sun moves into Pisces, which is going to cause a little bit of a problem. Mars is very much focused on our inner trauma place, and with the sun and the moon and everything focused on career, your inner trauma is not going to be helpful in terms of your career success, if that makes sense. And I really see how this plays out in terms of moving forward in certain goals, be they career or financial, is a lot of old worry over how situations took place in the past, and the mindset of this is just going to be like that last time when it didn't work out for me. The more you entertain those thoughts, the more you're just you might as well just shoot yourself in the foot. I mean, it literally is going to take all the energy that you're going to put into it completely out of it, and it's not very helpful for you, unfortunately. The good news is Neptune's sextile with Pluto. Pluto's focus is on finances, and Neptune is also focused on career. Now, this is a very helpful aspect. If you are focused on career goals that you're looking at achieving right now this week, this is really going to be helpful with that. Pluto is all about transformation. It's all about expansion. It's all about your personal power. It's all about taking control of your own finances. And Neptune's influence is really helping with that in your career. So while you may have a challenge coming up in your career, this is sort of sitting there going, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. Everything is going to work out. You know, just because this little thing happened that made you panic doesn't necessarily mean that everything is unraveling in front of you. And I feel like that really is the lesson. It's not that Pisces get hysterical all the time, but what I have seen from some of the Pisces that I've known throughout the years is that they do tend to get very emotional when things are working in a way that is not conducive to what they want. And while that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. You wind up wasting a lot of energy when you get emotional over something that may or may not happen. And so it's kind of like it's kind of like running, like you're pretending that you're being chased by a bear, but you're not actually being chased by a bear, but you're running just in case the bear shows up, kind of a thing. It doesn't really make sense to do. There's no guarantee that the bear is going to show up. You just wind up stopping and being exhausted because you run for no reason. And in this case, it's showing that you're worrying for no reason because everything is going to be okay. So while you're running because there might be a bear, even though the sign says there are no bears, why would you do that, right? That's what it comes down to. When you get to that point where you're worrying about whether this or that other thing is going to happen, tell yourself, no, we're not entertaining that today. It's not going to help the situation. It's not going to get things to move faster. It's not going to fix the problem. It's just going to wear me out and take my focus away from what I need to get done right now. When you do that, you start to have control over whether or not you're worrying over something. And that, even that by itself, is a huge deal, because now you can turn it off. Now you actually have the power to turn that off. And that's a wonderful thing. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And that is what I have for everybody this week. Thanks for hanging out with the Heavy Metal Psychic and the horoscopes. Please check out my website, heavymetalpsychic.com. All kinds of fun stuff going on there. You can book services on the website. If you are a first-time client, never gotten a reading before, you automatically get a 25% discount. Email me and ask me how you can get that. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great week. You guys make it a great week, everybody.